As you are exploring experience, what do we mean by experience? Physical body sensations, external sights, external sounds, emotional body sensations, mental image, internal talk, or various pleasant, restful experiences such as relaxation, mental quiet, and so forth. As you are exploring sensory experience, you could become aware of the presence of change. If you became aware of the presence of change, you might become aware of the presence of change in various flavors, vibration, undulation, etc., etc. You might further get a sense that all change can be looked upon as in terms of pairs of contrasts. And there's many dimensions, many types of contrast. Shall I repeat it again? More intense, less intense. Speeds up, slows down. Pressure pushes out, pressure pulls in. Sensations or anything spreads or collapses. Your attention is scattered in many directions. Your attention is gripped and held by one thing. These all can be looked upon as representations of expansion and contraction. And of course, more than one can happen at the same time. Something can speed up and grip at the same time. Okay? It's speeding up, that's expansion. Gripping, that's contraction. Something can spread and thin out at the same time. Spreading, that's expansion. Thinning out, that's contraction. So you can have just expansive flavors, just contractive flavors, and very frequently you have both flavors at the same time. Maybe in the same place, maybe same time but different place. So it could happen, as you're paying attention to experience, that you become aware of change. It could happen that you become aware of how change can be looked upon in terms of various flavors of increase and decrease. If so, if you become aware of change, then you can explore the change. If you become aware of change as fundamentally being based on different flavors of increase and decrease, then you can note the increase and decrease as expansion, contraction. And if both happen at the same time, you can say both. And by increase or decrease, affirmation, negation, I mean along any of the dimensions that this can happen. Speeding up, slowing down, okay. Shall I go through the list again? Speeding up, slowing down, intensifying, diminishing, spreading, collapsing, outward pressure, inward pressure, scattering of your attention, obsessing and gripping, and fixation of your attention. Outward and inward pressure are usually in the body looked upon as problems. We tend to blame ourselves. I'm resisting something. I'm somehow not letting things do what they need to do. Certainly scattering and obsessing of our attention is looked upon as a problem. But you don't have to look upon them as problems. You can just look upon them as reflections of the cosmic Tao, of the effortless efflux and reflux of nature. So, if you don't become aware of change, fine. Then make empowering distinctions. Just bring concentration, clarity, and equanimity to the stability of your experience. If you are aware of change and you want to explore it generically, then you can note flow, gone. If the flow presents itself in a way where you can analyze it into two fundamental flavors and at any given instant there may be just expansive qualities, just contractive qualities, or both at the same time, then you can go to a version of focus on change where you explicitly note and surrender to the expansion, contraction, or bidirectional flow. So expansion, contraction, and both at the same time so I look upon them as the fundamental flavors, or a sort of fundamental way of looking upon all flow. When expansion and contraction disappear, then there's zero. There's the one. There's the balance point, the still point. Except for the point, the still point, there would be no dance. And there is only the dance, okay? It's a great phrase. So expansion and contraction are the dance. The still point is where the dance comes from and where it goes to and what peppers it at all times. Next step, it could happen, not necessarily will or has to, it could happen that as you're paying attention to expansion and contraction, once again, to repeat, some of the expansion and contraction may not be that pleasant. As you're paying attention to it and yielding to it, it could happen that you notice that whenever there's anything expansive, space grows with it. Whenever there's anything contractive, space collapses. Then you could focus on the expansion and contraction of the pure, spacious nature of consciousness. And that becomes an amazingly empowering and fulfilling experience. Essentially, you get to feel the way the universe feels. I guess that's why some people call it cosmic consciousness. A further theme could present itself. Not only do you have a sense that this is a dance of pure space, the this meaning everything, the so-called material world that is so-called outside the world of touch, sight, sound, and the so-called inner world, the world of thought and emotion that reacts to it and says, I am. We say, I am, we say, it is. And that's true from a certain perspective. But it is also true that the I and the it are one arabesque of flowing, spacious energy from another perspective. It's the wave-particle duality is a beautiful metaphor for this that we can derive from modern physics. Yes, we can say there's an I and an it. But we can also say that comes about as an artifact of habits of consciousness, specifically lack of concentration, clarity, and equanimity. And if you have habitual concentration, clarity, and equanimity, you can tune into a different paradigm. Instead of the I over here, always at the mercy of an it over there, and eternally separate, like two ice cubes of ice that can only bang together. There's the river called I and the river called it, which will automatically become a single flow. Can't prevent them, can't prevent the two waves from adding, and can't make the two ice cubes merge. If you participate, even at the level of a hint, the sort of dramatic things that I'm describing maybe are not common experiences, but you may get a hint of what I'm talking about. And even when you get a hint of it, that's highly significant for a human being. In any event, by having enough experiences of self and world as integrated wave, the I versus it paradigm actually goes away forever. It can never come back. The sense of self, separate from the world, most assuredly can come back. But if there's been enough I experience, then you can never really go back to I, it. You can only go back to what Martin Buber called I, thou.